So good morning, everybody. This is Brett Janelle and my wife Annette Janelle. We're the hosts of the Retired Living True series for those who we haven't met before. I'm just going to buy a little bit of time. I see people are connecting on just at the moment now that we've opened this and gone live. So just bear with us a moment as people are connecting. You are all kind of in like a hold in a waiting room, and it looks like it takes a few seconds for everybody to be connected and have this come up on the screen. And I just want to see actually how many people are connected via phone versus their smart device. So we have a number of people calling in from their phone. So just a little bit of housekeeping. So people who are calling in listening from their phone, will explain everything as we're going through. Those who are on a mobile device, a smartphone, a computer, actually have the benefit of being able to see some PowerPoint slides that we have up on the screen. And we will be doing some polls, some interaction during this. So for those who are on the phone, if you can just bear with us during that process. Unfortunately, there's no way if you're dialed in to be able to interact, but we'll explain what we're doing and do as best we can with that. So I think, are we ready, Annette, just to jump on in and
Absolutely.
get started with it?
Let's go.
So today's topic, the truth about mistakes to avoid when selling your home. This feels so weird actually doing it here. We're in our dining room and you can see our banners that would normally be at Riggins Court. And it's kind of weird just talking to a computer screen and not being able to see all of your smiling faces, but you get to see ours. So, so the truth about mistakes to avoid when selling your home. So if we get the slides to advance. So firstly, just wanted to thank all of our sponsors. We have quite a number of sponsors who are actually on the call today joining us. Unfortunately, again, we can't see them. They can see us, but they can't see you. So, but we do want to really appreciate them. We wouldn't be able to continue to do this. They've been instrumental in helping us move this online and participating and setting up some additional calls that we'll talk about later to help us all through this time. But one question I did have is can you tell us how many sponsors we have on this slide? And as I said to Annette earlier, we're so happy to have 17 sponsors, but we wanted to use this slide actually to do a poll just to test it and get everyone familiar if you haven't done a poll before. So I'm going to put a poll up on the screen, and it's going to ask you to interact. If I can move my mouse to the right computer screen, there we go. So hopefully everyone should have a poll appearing up on their screen. So you should have popping up on your screen a poll now that's asking you the question. I'm looking over at Annette's iPad. How many sponsored logos are displayed on the screen? Is it 16, 17, or 18? So I'm going to just leave this up here for a few seconds and let you respond. And then we'll share the results and see how good people are at counting. I know if you're on a mobile device, because we were testing this early this morning, if you're on like a phone, unfortunately the little pop-up box kind of hides your screen, so it kind of makes it hard to count. But I did say actually how many were there, and if you were paying attention, and well, we've got some great results coming in. So I think we'll just end the poll there now, but we just wanted people to get familiar with the concept of a poll popping up on the screen, because we're going to use that for feedback as we go along. We're also going to test using it today to do registrations. If you'd like to register for future events, we're going to use the poll again as a way that you can indicate your interest in the future ones, and we can get you registered rather than you have to go on and find out how to do that. So we'll do that kind of at the end. For those who are new to the Retired Living True series, now that we've moved it online during the COVID pandemic, we're going to keep the same format where we spend 60 minutes thereabouts with the panelists. Today that happens to be us. Normally it'd be someone else on others. And then we'll open it up to question and answer, and we'll explain how we're going to do that when we get to that point. So let's share the poll results. So hopefully popping up on your screen, we can see the majority of people were correct. There are in fact 17 sponsors. We're almost going to do a trick question and ask how many logos, because then there would have been the Retired Living True series logo as well. But yeah, 17 was the correct answer. And a few people got 16, and if you're trying to count because your screen was hidden, I can see how you could easily get to 16 because most rows there have 4 logos on them. So thank you so much for participating in that. So selling a home in today's market, Annette, what do we need to know and what has kind of changed?
Well, quite frankly, in any market, we always get the same 3 questions. When is the best time to sell my home? how long will it take, and what price will I get? So we're going to delve into that a little deeper here today. But one of the differences that we're seeing right now is because of COVID-19. We are seeing the number of showings on homes has declined. I end up getting more calls from real estate agents asking about the homes online versus actually showing the home in person. And so, but homes are still definitely selling. We had a home we put on the market last week and received multiple offers within a day being on the market. So we are definitely getting activity. Rentals and tenants. If you have a rental unit that you want to sell and it's tenant occupied, those homes cannot be shown at this time. So due to the governor's orders, those homes are not being shown. And quite frankly, it is taking a little bit longer to get through the escrow process. Typically, we see between 30 to 45 days for the escrow process. The loan part is, for some borrowers, is taking a bit longer. So be more comfortable with that. Just know that it's going to take a little bit longer to do.
Okay. So a mistake today, if I had a rental, would be trying to sell it because no one can view it.
Absolutely.
Unless I guess we had photos, which we normally do anyway. If we're able to get photos, but again, if it's tenant occupied, we probably can't even get it photographed, correct?
And quite frankly, if it's tenant occupied, a lot of times it doesn't present that well in pictures anyway, unless you've got a tenant that is very tidy.
Right, so it'd be only if we had photos, and then someone could write an offer based on the photos, subject to seeing it at a later time when we get past all of this.
That is correct.
Okay, so hold off would sound like the best way to go for that. So timing the market. So that's mistake number one. So a lot of people try to time the market, whether it's the stock market, the real estate market, trying to work out, when should I sell, when should I buy? So for those who are able to see the screen, I've put up a graph that we used, I think a week ago. We did an update on the real estate market, and I know some people on the call joined us for. For those who are on the phone, let me just describe what we're looking at the moment. So here we're looking at a graph that is showing us the number of homes that go under contract week by week starting a year ago. And we can see that over Christmas period, the number of homes that go under contract, meaning buyer and seller agree on a price, it's been negotiated, and then some 45 days later it'll actually close escrow, change hands in terms of ownership. So over Christmas, we normally see a drop off because people are busy. People aren't typically out looking at homes the Christmas week. So for those seeing the graph, you can see a significant drop there. Then you can see the market picked up in January, February, and then the pandemic hit. And then you can see that the number of homes going into contract each week has dropped. So it's not a significant drop. So we've gone from about 175 homes per week going into contract for the Reno Sparks area, and that's dropped down to about 100 homes. So as Annette said, homes are definitely selling. People are out still looking at homes. People still need to move. So the good news of that is if you put a home on the market, it's still going to get interest and it's still going to go into contract if it's priced well and so forth. So
one of the things that I did yesterday, actually, I just looked to see how many people had withdrawn their home from the market compared to last year at this time, and we are seeing more homes coming off the market right now compared to last year at this time. And I actually went back to 2018 as well, and definitely more homes have gone off the market just since the beginning of March. So that means that there's less homes for buyers to choose from, even though there are buyers out there buying even in this market.
So this may actually be an opportunity for a seller because they're going to have less competition, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. So for those sellers who are thinking, I should take my home off the market or I shouldn't put it on, that's probably not necessarily the best thing, simply because we don't know where the market's going to be in another month, 2 months, 6 months. And we'll talk more about that. So another measure that we look at is the median sales price. Obviously, we don't want to sell our house for less than what we could have sold it for, just like our stocks. So the graph that we're looking at on the screen now is showing us the median sales price week by week over the last 12 months. And you can see it would appear that the price has dropped somewhat. So last week it was at if we went back 3 weeks ago, that peak you can see was $400,000 was the median price between Reno and Sparks properties that sold. And we can see that a week ago, it was at 382, and then as of just this past week at 411, it had gone to 365. So it would appear prices are going down, but this can be misleading because if you look at the graph, you can see there's lots of ups and downs, and we don't really know what's happening with pricing. until we look at over a longer period of time and look at the trend. And because it's a median, it's like the middle price of homes that sold, it can fluctuate. And depending on what point you picked at which week, you could say the market was going up or down, but that wasn't really the case. The market has been slowly going up.
And one thing that I do want to point out is because this is a median, when we're looking at higher priced homes, right now the lending industry, there are fewer jumbo loans that are being done. And those jumbo loans that are still being done, the interest rate is higher than what it was before this COVID-19. So we are seeing a little bit of an effect of the more expensive homes taking longer to sell.
I guess the other useful piece of information on the graph regarding median prices, these were prices that were negotiated 30 to 45 days ago is when the home got into contract. And we're seeing now when it's actually closing what the final sales price was. Another important part as far as looking at timing the market is the number of homes for sale. So on the screen, for those who are able to see it, we have a graph showing the number of homes for sale at any one time, starting again a year ago, through to now. So we can see over the holiday period, the number of homes for sale typically drops. The time when the most homes are on the market is over the summer period. That doesn't mean the most sell over the summer period. It's just there's more sellers choose to put their home on the market. But we can see now as of a week ago, the number of homes currently on the market is 1,001. A peak is like 1,700. So the purpose of looking at this, it tells the sellers definitely still have their homes on the market, and as Annette explained, homes are still going on to contract. But for those who can see the graph, if we go back 12 months and look at March, April of last year, this is when we see all of the homes come on the market, and what our fear is going forward is sellers are going to hold back from putting their home on the market now, thinking things will be better at some point in the future, and we don't know when that will be. And by holding off and waiting until maybe summer, that's probably what lots of other sellers are thinking about. And the challenge with that is sellers are going to have a lot more competition. A lot more sellers are going to be competing. And when we have more supply than we have demand, that forces prices down. So it's quite possible when we get past all of this, there'll be downward pressure on prices and they will actually be lower than what they are today. So if I had a home and I was wanting to sell it today, I would do it now when I know what the market is versus the unknowns going forward. And we'll talk more about that just in a moment. So now may be the best time. And I guess a good analogy is back in 2007, those who sold in 2007, 2008 did a whole lot better than those that waited to 2009, 2010 as the prices just kept coming down. So it just depends on what your belief is in terms of what the market is going to do. Oops, we just skipped a slide. So one of the big things driving this is unemployment. So we talked last week on the call that we did how unemployment in the US has suddenly jumped to 17 million people. You can see this in the graph for those who can see it's normally around 200,000-300,000 people in any given week. We've jumped to 17 million. That is a big number, and they're expecting this week probably another 5 million added to that. And then with businesses at the moment who are closed, some of our big retail stores may not open again, which will further drive unemployment. And also, there's been a lot of mortgage defaults in terms of payments. People haven't been able to make their mortgage payment. The numbers just came out this last week, and it was a big number. So the problem with that is how those people are going to be able to catch back up when they are employed, if they get employed. So the fear is there's just going to be a lot of pressure in our economy. The economy isn't going to be doing well. We're going to be in a recession, and that obviously impacts our home prices. So again, just now might be a better time than later, but there's no way of knowing for sure. The good news of all of that, as we shared last week, is the graph that we now have on the screen. It's just showing us past recessions that have happened from 1970 through to the one in 2010-ish, 2007. And the good news is the market always does come back. So if you don't need to sell and you can wait it out 2-3 years time, worst case, I know it was longer last time, some of us had to wait 8 or 9 years for prices to come back. But prices will come back, we're totally confident of that. The market always goes in cycles. So if you can wait it out, great. But we would just suggest if you think they're doing something now in the short term, rather than putting life on hold, maybe now's a better time than dealing with the unknown later. Because last time this happened, we had clients who were waiting it out, and then they were so, disappointed that they hadn't taken action sooner. Their life was on hold. They didn't get to move on with their plans, and now they're 6, 7, 8 years older, and they could have jumped earlier and moved their life forward to where they wanted to be.
Absolutely. Yep.
So mistake number 2, misunderstanding selling as is a common one we come across. Annette, do you want to talk about what as is?
Yes, so as is not doing any repairs, not giving a credit to the buyer, just selling the home. This is how much I'm selling it for. You take it the way it is or you don't. Now, I often have people that want to sell as is, meaning that they just don't want to do repairs. But the buyer can ask for a credit towards repairs. And even when a buyer puts in an offer on your home and says that they're taking an as-is condition, they can still do inspections on your home and find out if there is something about the home that they should have known before they got into contract that they didn't. And they can still come back and ask you for repairs or a credit. So if you truly want to do as is, I highly recommend that you get pre-inspections done ahead of time. Typically the buyer pays for inspections, but if you want to do as is, you as the seller would be paying for those inspections, and then that way you would provide those to the buyer, so when they write their offer, they know all about the home from the get-go, and you're more likely to be able to sell the home as is with no credits.
Perfect. And then credits versus repairs?
Well, credits versus repairs, it just means that in lieu of you making the laundry list of repairs that the buyer has asked for, you just tell them, I'll give you a credit for $1,000 or $500, however much it is, and as long as both parties agree, you're good to go.
Okay, great. Number 3, making unnecessary or inappropriate repairs or changes. Let's start with unnecessary.
Yeah, unnecessary. So we often have people that will invite us over to their home and want to know what they should do to their home to get it ready for sale. And I prefer that you ask us to come to your home from the very beginning instead of after you've done some type of remodeling. Because quite frankly, there are some homes that it is better that you don't do anything to it at all because you're not going to get a higher price for the home. And those are homes that are typically the entire house is of one period of time, so it may be dated. But as long as the whole house is dated, great, just leave it the way it is. But if you have the kitchen remodeled, and let's say everything's remodeled except for one bathroom, then it would be worth your while to update that one bathroom in order to get the higher price, because it would just basically bring up that bathroom to what the rest of the house looks like. And so that can add value to your home. So it's really important to not do unnecessary updating or remodeling to your home unless it's really going to get you a return on your money, or unless you're thinking of selling maybe in 5 years from now and you're doing this for your own enjoyment.
So what about like carpet? So you mentioned credits versus repairs selling as is, but what if my carpet looks really bad? It's green shag carpet from way back when, but the rest of the house looks really good. Would it make sense to potentially swap out the carpet, or should I just leave it as it is?
If the rest of the house looks great and it's just the carpet, we would look at, and if it's older carpet, worn carpet, if it can just be cleaned, we just clean it. Otherwise, yes, swapping out the carpet, but not getting the top of the line carpet. We just want a carpet that is value and looks really good. And quite frankly, overspending would be like a HVAC. If you need to replace your AC or your furnace, replace it, but you don't necessarily need to replace it with top of the line. So it depends on when you plan on selling your home. And same with the roof. If you're planning on selling your home within the next 5 years, there's no point in you paying the extra money for a 50-year roof. You can pay for a 20-year roof instead.
Because we know most homeowners are only in the house today, it's usually 5 to 7, 9 years. So someone doesn't really appreciate a 50-year roof versus a 30-year roof versus a 20-year roof, because I don't plan on being there as long as the roof is going to outlast the period of time I'm in the house.
And quite frankly, when a buyer buys, they just want to know that they don't need to replace the roof within the next year or two. They're already spending money to purchase your home. They don't want that added expense. So as long as the roof is in good condition, or at least has some life left to it, you're good to go.
That's kind of the same with the heating and air. A buyer doesn't appreciate the fact you've spent way more on this top-of-the-line heating and cooling system. As long as it works and is functional, the buyer isn't going to pay more because you went overboard. If it makes you feel more satisfied having something better, just don't expect to get the money back from it.
Absolutely. And then updates too far in advance of selling your home. If you're thinking of selling within a year and you change out the carpet and paint now, by the time you get to selling your home, that carpet and paint may not look as great. Now, if it's just you living in the home or it's getting very little wear, fine. But if you've got more people living in your home and it is getting wear, then it may, basically, if you do it too far in advance, do it for your own enjoyment, you may need to update it by the time you want to sell. I'm trying to
get to the next slide. So mistake number 4, failing to stage the home. We've broken that down into 2 parts. The first part is photos.
So the house looks a lot better if it does have furniture in it when you photograph. And that also, let me do the caveat as far as what period of furniture there is. So if you have a mishmash of furniture in your house, maybe not. But if you do have nice furniture, it will photograph better with the furniture there. If you don't have any furniture, and we definitely sell a lot of vacant houses, that is when the staging actually has to do with the painting and the flooring, because that is what people are going to be looking at when they look through your home. So when we talk about failing to stage, it's the presentation of your home when you're looking through the photographs or when people is looking at your home in person.
The big part of that is because most buyers are actually looking at the home online, so they're doing their searches online. So if the home doesn't show well online, we know that the home gets less showings than a home that does show well online, because people have to select which homes they're going to go and view, and the ones that look the nicest are the ones they'll go see first. So to that I would just say decluttering is part of that, not just having too much. If the homes that are just totally full of stuff don't photograph well, so we want to declutter. And then another thing people sometimes not think about is that we can have photos taken before you move furniture out. So some people are wanting to move somewhere else and they're taking all their furniture with them before the home's going to go on the market. But what we've done often when we've had a good conversation with our seller and it's our seller, we'll have the home photographed before everything's moved out. And then it shows really well online, then they can move all of the furniture. So that works really well as well, also, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And then when we're doing showings, it is best if you have pets to not have them at the house during the showings, and if they have to be at the house, to have them caged in some way so that the buyer can feel comfortable walking through the home and you can feel confident that your pet is taken care of. So again, it's best not to have them there if possible. Also, odors are really important not to have, whether it be food odors, pet odors, smoke odor, any type of odor. You want a neutral smell in the home. We had a home recently had a musty odor, and so it's good to have something just to neutralize that, but you don't want an overpowering smell of any kind.
And then the last one we're going to touch on was just depersonalizing.
Yes, so basically taking down items that we want people to notice your home, not all of your items in the house. So it's great to take down family photos. It doesn't mean you can't have some family photos up. It's better to have something on the wall, but we don't want a lot of that. We don't want anything that's religious, anything that is basically will distract the buyer from just looking at your home and appreciating the house itself. And if you have items that look really nice, like a fireplace, it's best not to cover it up. If you don't use the fireplace, we've had people they'll cover up the fireplace, but for looking through the home, we want people to notice those. So we pull furniture away from that and actually focus on it.
Let's go to mistake number 5.
Slides are going slow.
So setting an unsubstantiated asking price is our 5th mistake. And we'd actually like to just take a quick poll. We all got to play with the polls earlier, so let's just do another poll. I'm just going to pull that up. And so for those who are on a device, you should see a poll pop up on the screen that says, over the next 3 months, are housing prices likely to A, increase, B, stay the same, or C, decrease? So we're going to stay the same, increase or decrease. So for those who are on the phone, what do you think? We can't hear you, but I'm sure we all have a thought as to what's going to happen with prices. And I'm expecting everyone to say they're going to keep going up over the next month or two, but we'll see what comes back. So we'll just leave that up for a few seconds. But there are a lot of things that, as we spoke about earlier, that are going to influence what happens with the real estate market, and a lot of that's driven by our economy overall, jobs, employment, of course, businesses and so forth, and just how long this all takes. So I think we've got a good representative sample there. I can't count how many people have responded, but quite a number. And so I'm going to just end the poll there now so we can see how many people, or what everyone thinks. So let's share the poll results. Thank you for everyone who participated. And so the results that you indicated to us, so over the next 3 months, are housing prices likely to increase? 12% thought they'll increase. Stay the same was 24%. And decrease was 65%. So the overwhelming majority think prices probably are going to go down in some way. Obviously, none of us know how much. So thank you. So we wanted to talk about a couple of things when it comes to setting an unsubstantiated asking price. In other words, simply put, overpricing the home to begin with. So I'm sure we've all seen homes that are overpriced, and it's obvious to us at times that, wow, what are those people thinking?
So when we look at a home and to price it correctly, we look to see what the market is doing right now. So how many homes, well, and in that particular home, the neighborhood itself, how many homes that are similar to it, what they have sold for, how long it took them to sell, and then what the market is doing right now. Are we seeing the prices go up? Are they staying the same? So that's how we figure out pricing for a home. It doesn't matter what your neighbor sold their home for. I oftentimes get people say, well, my neighbor sold their home for X amount of dollars, and I feel that that's how much my home should sell for because my home is more updated than theirs. So it doesn't matter. Even when you get an appraisal done on your home, that appraisal or what the neighbor sold their home for was done for that moment in time. That was what a buyer was willing to pay at that moment. It doesn't necessarily mean what your home is worth now. And then as far as doing updates in your home, now that's a key thing. If you've done updates in your home, it could mean that you just brought your home up to selling standard. For instance, the updates that you did, was it to replace the roof that was at the end of its life? Was it to replace the HVAC? Did you redo the flooring? What type of updates did you do? And is the neighborhood doing the same type of updates? Did you just bring it up to what everybody else has already done to their home? So those updates don't necessarily get more value for your home. And quite frankly, if you updated your home and nobody else in the neighborhood has updated their home and yours is better than all the other homes, you're definitely not going to get dollar for dollar for those updates because basically you may have priced your home higher than what the neighborhood could actually get for your home because the rest of the neighborhood is not as updated as yours. And we did talk about that previously. So updates can be hopefully you do them for your own enjoyment. And then it doesn't matter what you paid for the home. So I paid X, therefore I need to get X. The buyer doesn't care what you paid for the home. The buyer is looking at how your home compares to the other homes and if they like it and what they're willing to pay for it in this current market. So it doesn't matter what you paid for.
That's especially true if it's in a market that's declining. So someone who bought their home a month ago, if prices go down, it doesn't matter what they paid for it then. It's the market that we're in now at that current time. It's kind of like the stock market. I could have bought Carnival Cruise Lines there a few months ago for $100 a share, and today it's trading at $20 a share. Yeah, I need to get $100 back, but is anyone going to pay $100 when it's now trading at 20? Yeah, it's not going to happen. So we need to be aware of what our current market is. That's kind of also goes back to the first one, and it talked about the neighbour selling their home for a certain amount. So assuming everything was the same, the lot size, the updates, the square footage, the age built, if everything was the same, the thing that's not the same is the market. So as time goes on, we're in a different market, even just months apart. So competition can change. So that seller didn't have any competition. They were the only home in that whole neighbourhood that was available, and there was a buyer just having to be in that neighbourhood and paid that price. And here we are 3 months later, and now there's 4 or 5 homes for sale, and that neighbourhood can cause the price to be pushed down because there's competition now. Buyers have choices, and they can negotiate between the 5 homes, and one of those homes will be successful, but probably at a lower price because the seller wants to sell.
And then the last one, an agent said that they could get me more money. I would ask how, because all the information is the same for all of us. So how did they come up with that price? And just ask more questions about how they came to that, because basically it should be looking at what the market is doing, looking to see what most recently sold, and then meshing the two, and then obviously how your home compares to other homes that are currently on the market, the condition.
Yeah. So, if I can get my mouse to work, go to the next slide. Didn't we have a poll somewhere here in it?
Not on this one. You did it on the last one. Okay, let's do another poll.
So I think we were meant to do the poll before we did the... So asking price. So we have a simple poll here. So a home that's been on the market for a while, so would you pay full price for a home that's been sitting on the market for months? So scenario being, homes are selling in 30 days. Here's a home just like the ones that have sold, but it's been on the market for 6 months. Would you be willing to pay full price for it, what the seller is asking? And I'm seeing a lot of no's popping up. Because what do we all think about the home that's just been sitting there forever? It's got this high price, higher than anything else that's sold. And I know you can't all interact with me, but all say it out loud. What are we thinking? There's something wrong with the home.
Or you're wondering what's wrong with the house.
Wondering what's wrong with the home. It may not be anything wrong, but if it's been sitting there for a long time, it's just human nature. No one else wants it, so why would I? So typically, yeah, we're not going to see someone paying full price. There are always exceptions, but as a generality, we're not going to get full price of that home the longer it sits there on the market.
And even when we have homes that are on the market, and let's say it went under contract and then it came back on the market for whatever reason, the agents will always ask, what happened? Why did it come back on the market? What is wrong with the house? Because you still see the days on market. It covers the time that we were actually in contract as well. So it looks like it's been on the market a long period of time.
And then our second question on the poll, for those who are listening and on the phone, is how do we know the value of a home? So as a real estate agent or as a buyer, someone listening in today, how do you know what the value of the home is? So we put up 3 possible answers. The first one is A, what the neighbour thinks the home is worth. We kind of talked about that. What you want for the home. C, what a buyer is willing to pay. Or D, what the agent said you would get for the home. So we'll just give this a few seconds as people are responding, and then we'll share the results. They're quite interesting, aren't they?
They are.
Let's come back. Yeah, and then maybe we'll just talk about these just for a quick moment. So let's end the polling there. Let's share the results. So let's talk about the first question. Would you pay full price for a home that has been sitting on the market for months? And 5% of people said yes. So as we said, there are exceptions. That might be just the neighbourhood you need to be in. That's where your family are, and I'm willing to pay that price. The sellers won't budge. There's no other homes. Homes rarely come up for sale. I'm going to pay that price. But that doesn't happen that often. And sometimes we'll have sellers who are just waiting for that, and you could wait years for that right combination to come along. And if you've got years, I guess that's the seller's choice. And then 95% of people said no. As Annette talked about, if the home's been sitting there, usually when a buyer does come along, now the seller is willing to negotiate because they're tired of showings, they're tired of being sitting on the market month after month after month, hearing from their real estate agent that we need to probably do something about the price if you want to get sold. And then the second one, how do we know the value of a home? So no one is basing it on what the neighbours think. We got 0% for that. What you want for the home, 3% thought it's what I want for the home is what it's worth. And we talked about why that's probably not the case. What you want and what someone's willing to pay aren't necessarily the same. And then an overwhelming number of people, just on 80%, said what a buyer is willing to pay. And that's how we know what homes are worth. We look to see what homes sold for, and that gives us a great indication, and then adjusting for any differences in the home and its condition, location, and so forth. to determine a price, and that's what we use as real estate agents, and that's what appraiser uses. We need to look at what's sold and taking into account market conditions such as competition. And then D, what the agent said you would get for the home, a surprising 18% said that. And that's great that people trust us or their real estate agent, and that's good to follow the advice, but just make sure, as Annette said, you understand the advice, because sometimes real estate agents will give you an inflated price, hoping that will buy your business, basically, and then you're in that situation where you're priced too high. And what typically happens with homes that start off priced too high? What is the end result? Selling at market value or less?
You end up selling for less than what you could have gotten if you had actually sold it or priced it right to begin with, because you're basically chasing the market down. You keep reducing the price and you're never quite at that amount where you should be.
And especially so if we're in a changing market, in a declining market, or in an appreciating market, that's even more important. So yes, definitely listen to your real estate agent, but make sure they're explaining to you, they're not just giving you a number, as Annette said, making sure they're explaining you and walking you through how they're arriving at that so you can feel confident in that number. So thank you again for everyone who shared in the poll. And I think we were meant to ask that later, but anyway.
It's a good time, it's now. So number 6 is staying home during showings. It is preferable that you are not home for the showings. And there's a couple reasons. One is it can make the buyers feel uncomfortable. We want the buyers to come into your home and actually see themselves, see their family in your home. And so they'll walk through your home and just get a feel for it. If you are there and you're leading them through the home, that can make them feel very uncomfortable and want to leave versus staying and really visualizing whether or not they want to be there. It can also be very uncomfortable for you as a seller if you're there, because you may overhear what the buyers are saying about your home, and it may not be something you want to hear. So that can be very uncomfortable. And the other thing that we definitely don't want to have happen is the buyer or the agent asking you as the seller questions about your home or questions about what you're willing to do. That can really cause a problem. We had one where I was showing the home to some clients, and as soon as the seller was there, as soon as she opened the door, we didn't even have to ask the question. She said, "We're going to be reducing the price on Wednesday." Well, we were there at the current price. It didn't do her any good to tell us that she was reducing the price on Wednesday. So we definitely do not want you as a seller answering any questions of the buyer. So the other thing is, if they're asking, does anything need to be repaired or done, you could say, hey, as a seller, I'm going to be taking care of this, that, and the other thing. The buyer, if they're interested in your home, are going to hold you to it. And that could have been a great negotiating tactic if that you hadn't offered that up front. So it is best if you're not there. Now, not everybody is in a position where they can leave their home. We have had sellers that are on oxygen, and just leaving the home can be difficult. So if that is the case, then what you want to do is when somebody comes, you wait till they show up, and then you either step out on the patio, just let them be able to walk around your home without you right there. And if anybody does ask you questions, you just direct them back to your agent.
Yep, great advice. So that was mistake number 6. Let's have a look at mistake 7. So mistake number 7 is ignoring feedback. So in 2 parts, showing feedback and a changing market. So let's talk about showing feedback first, Annette.
So one of the things that we do on all of our listings, and most agents do have this capability, is to get feedback. So we'll ask, every time your home is being shown, we will ask the agent what they thought of the home and what their buyers thought of the home. So is it priced right? What do you think of the pricing? Was there another home that you saw that was of better value? Have you written an offer on another home? We're asking them these questions to see how your home fits with all of the other homes that the buyers are looking at, and we provide that feedback to you. That feedback is invaluable. It tells us whether or not we're priced right for the market, or at least helps tell us that. And it also tells us if we need to make adjustments, or if we had one house where we had a lot of showings, but the people kept saying that the trees in the back, they were worried about the roots causing problems for the foundation, even though they saw no issues with foundation. We ended up calling a couple arborists to come out and give us their expertise on the trees, and we're able to offer that to potential buyers, and we're able to get the home into contract. So that feedback tells us what we need to do in order to get your home sold. So that, we don't want to ignore it. We want to pay attention to it and move on it as quickly as possible, so the days on market is as short as possible.
Yeah, because sometimes in the feedback it'll be something we can easily change, but just wasn't obvious to the seller or us at the beginning. But when we hear it from 10 different buyers who've looked at the home and it's something we can easily make a change to inexpensively, then we get rid of that barrier. We can go back to those buyers who looked, and we've had that before where now they're interested in it because whatever it was taken care of. And then the second part is changing market.
And we've kind of addressed this a little bit, but if the market is changing, and because we look at, when we have a home on the market, every single week we look to see what is the market doing for that home, around that home, what are the sales doing. And so that helps give us feedback as to whether or not, if the market is changing, if we need to make an adjustment to price. And to be able to act on that quickly so we're not chasing the market down.
So a good example would be, we've put our home on the market jointly with our client at whatever the price happens to be. Let's say it's $300,000 because we're all confident that should be the price. But then 3 other homes pop up on the market, and those sellers are more motivated, and they've priced below that price, below the $300,000. And we need to look at that because that's going to impact which homes the buyers go and look at. Usually buyers are going to look at the least expensive home in that neighbourhood for the same size and all of the other attributes, and then they work their way up to the one that's most expensive. And invariably it's that one that's priced more competitively, offers more value, is the one that's going to sell first. So we just need to know about that. Maybe we don't have to respond, but we just need to know, because if you're as motivated or more motivated needing to move, then maybe you do want to make an adjustment. Maybe you want to be the one who sold, not the neighbour. Because sometimes we'll see, the subject home, the sellers, they'll sit there and wait for 3, 4 other homes to sell, and each one has sold at a lower price, and now they're faced with the reality that they have to sell even lower, or at that lowest point, when they could have got in early and sold at a higher price. So it's just really important to understand what's going on in the market.
And we talk about the fact that you're basically helping your neighbor sell your home if you're priced at a higher price and all the comparable homes are lower than yours. Because the buyers may still come and look at your home, but they're going to look at it and go, okay, what makes this home so much more expensive than the other homes? And if they realize that they're all very similar, then you just helped sell your neighbor's home.
And they'll say thank you.
Yes. Or maybe not.
Well, they'll think thank you. So number 8, misunderstanding selling costs. So the first one is, often we'll hear sellers say something to the effect that we want to price the home higher than the market so there's room for negotiating. So why is that a mistake in terms of a selling cost? Because invariably homes that get priced higher than they should be, as Annette said, we can statistically show they end up selling lower than what they would have sold for if they were priced right correctly. So that is a cost to you as a seller. You end up getting less money in your pocket because you overpriced it to begin with. And the reason why pricing higher is, as Annette alluded to, buyers are going to go and look at the best value homes. So they may not even look at your home, or if they do look at your home, it's showing that the other homes are better value and they'll write an offer on the other homes instead. And sometimes they'll say, well, why don't they write an offer on ours? Well, the other home's priced better, so that's a better place to start than starting with the seller they know who's already overpriced. So the end of result is it ends up costing you money, most times pricing higher, leaving room for negotiating.
It's interesting. We had a client once that did exactly this. They wanted to leave room for negotiation, and so they priced it higher, and they said, well, somebody will just write an offer on it. And the prices were indicating that we should have been priced $20,000 less than where we were at. And we ended up reducing the price to where it should be at, and they ended up getting multiple offers, and they ended up selling within, I think it was $4,000 of what their original asking price was. So if they had just priced it right to begin with, then they would have gotten that price a lot sooner than having to sit at that other price and just not get any offers at all.
And they would have saved several months of property tax, mortgage payments, and other expenses holding the house because they'd started off at a higher price. So two places where we can lose money or there are costs when it comes to selling a home is during negotiations. So there's two places when we negotiate. The first is when an offer comes in. So seller has put the home on the market, buyer makes an offer, and then we have to come to some agreement on price if it's not at the full asking price. So having someone good or helping you as far as the negotiation to maximize how much you're going to get for the home, that's one place where it can cost us money if we are set up in a good position for that. And then the second one is once we're in contract with the buyer as a seller, we can't get rid of the buyer until the buyer basically decides they don't want to move forward, and that comes at the point of inspections and an appraisal. So for inspections, this is where the buyer wants certain repairs to be made. Again, it's another negotiation. And also when an appraisal is done, sometimes the appraisal doesn't come in at the value that is being offered on the home. The appraiser is saying it's actually worth less than that. So that also causes another a negotiation as to what we're going to do. So those are two other points where it can cost you money if we don't do it wisely, if you don't have good advice. That's more money that can be lost during that process. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Absolutely. And during the negotiation period, like we did the poll earlier, how do you know the value of your home? And it's what the buyer is willing to pay for your home. The offer price that they give you doesn't necessarily mean that you have to agree to that price. That is where you can come back and come to some kind of go back to them with a price. Same with an appraisal. If the appraisal comes in less than asking price, you can either reduce the price to what that appraisal amount is. You can negotiate with the buyer and come to maybe go halfway or come to some agreement where it's not quite at the appraisal price, or you can just tell the buyer you offered this amount, this is what the value is, in my opinion, and what you agreed to, you need to make up the difference. And as long as the buyer is willing, all of that's a negotiation. So just because it comes in at a lower price does not necessarily mean you automatically have to go to that price.
Yeah, and sometimes we can protect our seller by doing that in the negotiations right at the very beginning, knowing this is an unusual house, so we can build into our what we call a counter offer that the buyer is going to make up the difference if it doesn't come in at appraisal. So we've already covered that at the beginning. So then the next part is, what am I going to net? So anytime you're selling a home, you should have your agent run what we call a seller net sheet. And the purpose of the seller net sheet is so you can see what all the expenses are going to be and therefore know how much you should walk away with from the sale of the home. So the real estate's commission typically ranges somewhere in the 5 to 6% range. Property transfer tax to the county, title fees, repairs, any credits that have been negotiated, inspections. So these are all items that would appear on the seller net sheet, so you know what the bottom line is, which is what you really care about. The mortgage, once you've paid off the mortgage if there is one, so you know exactly what you should be walking away with.
So again, you should get the seller net sheet when you decide that you're going to list your home. So whatever that price is that you and your agent have worked out, have a net sheet be put together with these costs. And then again, when you receive an offer from a buyer, if it's different than what the offer price is, then have it run again just to make sure that you know and you understand what those closing costs are going to be and that you feel comfortable moving forward with that offer.
Yeah, last thing you want is a surprise on closing day, thinking you're going to get a check for X and it ends up being X minus some amount that you weren't aware of or informed of. So yeah, definitely get a seller net sheet. And then Annette, you wanted to touch on capital gains tax?
Yeah, so capital gains, it's just good to talk to your CPA or tax advisor if you are going to be selling, especially an investment property, knowing what your capital gains is going to be before you put your home on the market.
And if it's a home we own, do we need to be concerned about that, or do you want to?
It depends on how long you have owned the home. So if you are a single person selling your home, there's a $250,000 tax, a relief of tax for that amount. If you sell your home for $250,000 above and beyond what you purchased your home for, and if you're a married couple, it's $500,000. Now, if you are a single person and you were married when you purchased the home, then it needs to be calculated how much the house was worth when your spouse passed away, and then that difference, then it's $250,000 difference from that time that your spouse passed away. Again, it's best that you speak with your CPA about that when you look at selling a home.
Yeah, so it's mainly investment properties because most people, the home, if it's a married couple, hasn't gone up $500,000. Maybe, you know, the California Bay Area that happens, more common, but not so much of an issue here, more of rental properties.
Right.
Right. So mistake number 9, failing to disclose. So what do we mean by that?
So we definitely want to, we definitely want to disclose any roof leaks, flooding, termites, anything that, even if it's been fixed. We had a client that her home, she had gone on a trip to Hawaii, and when she came back, the bathtub that was upstairs was now sitting in her living room. So it was all covered by insurance, and so everything was put back, and she got a clear pass on it as far as inspections and all, but that needed to be disclosed that did happen and what the outcome was. Same with roof leaks. If you've had any flooding, even if you've done the repairs, you should disclose it and say what you did to fix it.
But why don't you disclose it if it's been fixed, it's been taken care of?
Well, if for some reason something happens or the buyer finds out about it from the neighbor and it hadn't been disclosed to them, that could cause problems, and it's just a way to avoid problems altogether. We had a client also that we represented the seller, and she had all these bridges in her backyard.
I think we've told this story before.
We have told this story before, but maybe not everybody remembers it. She had bridges in her backyard, and, you know, quite frankly, Brett and I never really asked about it. It just had stonework. It looked like that was just...
Very decorative?
It was decorative,
Yeah, looked good.
It did. And the buyer bought the property, and there was a heavy rainstorm. It turns out it floods in the backyard, and the bridges were for our client, our seller, to actually be able to still access the backyard via the bridges, but it caused all these problems into the house. So if our seller had disclosed that from the get-go, we would have let the buyer know about it, and it wouldn't have been an issue. We would have just negotiated what needed to be done at that time. But since the seller did not disclose it, they came back to us and said, you need to take care of this. This is what the bill is. And we basically told our seller, you can either go take it to court or you can pay the bill, but you didn't disclose it. So she ended up paying the full amount to have the backyard repaired so that there was no flooding.
Yeah, drainage put in. So why is failing to disclose a mistake is the point we have there on the slide, to avoid ending up at small claims or in litigation, which is time consuming and very expensive. So just by disclosing, you can avoid that. So we always just say to clients, if in doubt, disclose. You can't really get yourself into trouble by over disclosing, but the opposite is.
And actually, the more you disclose, it just shows that you cared for your home. You noticed that something needed to be taken care of on your home, and you took care of it. So you itemize those items. It actually presents very well to a buyer to see those things.
Yeah, they think of you as a meticulous, caring homeowner who is, taking care of whatever needed to be taken care of. So our last mistake, number 10, are showstoppers to avoid. So some things you definitely want to be aware of if these apply, so that they don't prevent you from selling your home or causing you to get less money for it. So what are lien holders in it? On our slide we have, first point, lien holders.
Well, I want to back up a little bit. When we take a listing, we actually have our title company run a title report on the home, because we want to know, are there any liens against the property that the seller is not aware of? Because all of those liens need to be paid off when the house is sold.
So what's a lien for those who aren't familiar with that?
So if you have a mortgage, that could be a lien. If you, let's say you had some work done on your home and you didn't pay the workers, they can put a lien against your property that this needs to be paid. So when you close escrow, that has to be paid. So you may not know. It's very good to actually have that done ahead of time so you can reduce surprises.
And we've definitely seen that, like a mechanic's lien. It was put against the property for work to be done, and it was paid, but the lien was never removed. But until it's removed, the house can't be sold. Other common ones are property tax. That's a lien. You can't sell your house if you haven't paid all of your property taxes. The county want to get their money. So there can be various different forms of liens on a property.
We recently had one where there were 3 liens against the property, and the seller was only aware of 2 of those liens. So they had to go back and do their research to find out where did they actually pay this third lien holder or not? Because again, selling the property, and that reflects on your bottom line. If you need to pay that out, then that's going to reflect on your net sheet to know how much you're going to walk away with. So that can be a showstopper. If there's a certain amount of money that you need to get out from the sale of your home, you need to know what kind of liens are against your property. Bankruptcy is another thing that can cause issues. If you are in the middle of bankruptcy, quite frankly, I've talked to your bankruptcy attorney, but from the people that I've spoken with that have bankruptcy, if you sell your property, then that money that you're getting from your property is going to your bankruptcy. So you're better off waiting until the bankruptcy is over and closed before selling your property. Power of attorney. You want to talk about that, Brett?
So what do we mean by power of attorney? I'm just trying to think why we power of
Well,
attorney.
actually, if you're selling your property and you have a spouse that is traveling, going somewhere else, or if we had one where the 3 siblings were selling the property, and one of the siblings went to a country that, I can't even remember, it was a country that we didn't have access to.
Yeah, there's no U.S. consulate there to have anything notarized.
Right. We couldn't sell the property. We had to wait until she came back to be able to have her sign. And we had buyers that were ready to buy it. That property was on the market. She left without getting a power of attorney for one of her siblings, or even letting us know that she was leaving the country. So that's a real showstopper. You really need to make sure that if your home is on the market, that you can sign off or have somebody sign off for you and keep your agent informed as to where you are.
Yes, I guess siblings is a common one, a spouse who's traveling out of the country, whatever it may be. Yeah, making sure the other spouse has a power of attorney to be able to sign.
And deceased spouse. So oftentimes a spouse will pass away and you may not take your spouse off title. Well, it's good for us to know that the spouse is on title, and all we need is a death certificate to show, and then we can have title just remove your spouse from title.
Assuming title was taken out in an appropriate manner to begin with. So sometimes the surviving spouse has the unfortunate surprise of how the house was held in title, and they don't actually have claim to the house because they never realized that it wasn't jointly held, it was held in some other form. So yeah, just knowing how title is being held. And then the last one, trust, is kind of similar. Again, making sure we have the trust documents. So if the home is held in a trust, then we need to identify who needs to sign in order to be able to sell the house. And just having that available, knowing who the appropriate signatories are on the trust.
Absolutely.
Anything you wanted to add to that?
No, that's it. And we do have a poll on this.
So we have a poll, yes. So just to help, if anybody is thinking of selling in the next 12 months, one thing we really do recommend is knowing who is on title. So if I get my mouse to go back here. Polls. So we just wanted to offer 2 things if it's at help. If it's not, then you can just ignore, I think, none of the above. But basically the poll, if anyone would like help, the first one is if you're thinking of selling a home in the next 12 months and you would like a complimentary review of how property title is held, we'd be more than happy to pull up title, see if there's any liens against the property, who the ownership on the property is. Sometimes, as we said, it can be quite the surprise, but just so you know. If that would be helpful, just check that box. And then secondly, if you're again thinking of selling, it would be helpful to know what the value of your home is. We'd be happy to run a complimentary value estimate so you know what your home might sell for in this market. Obviously, the further it out, the less accurate it's going to be because the market's going to change. But if either of those would be helpful to you, just mark the box and then we will follow up with you later in the week, next week, and get that information to you. We'll obviously need to contact you for your property address in order to be able to pull up title and home valuation. So we'll just leave that up there for a moment. Anything else we wanted to cover on that?
No, I think that's pretty much it on that one.
Okay. So we'll just let people, I see quite a few people have responded. So again, yeah, we'll follow up. If you're calling in from the phone, and that would be helpful, obviously you can't respond on the poll, just call our office and we'd be more than happy to put that together for you. And whether you, no obligation, you don't need to use us, we just want to be helpful, so just provide the information. So I'm just going to close that poll. If anyone's missed out again, just call us. Those on the phone, just call us, and we'd be happy to get either of those items to you and help you with that. So let's end the polling there. And then let's jump to our next slide. So we just wanted to talk about events, and then we'll open it up to question and answer. So we have a number of events coming up. Given the pandemic that we're dealing with and being stuck at home, we thought we'd see if we could put on some more useful webinars to you. So we started, well actually, let me start with this Thursday. So this Thursday, April the 16th, we are having one of our mortgage sponsors, Debbie Wood. She's going to do a webinar with us where we're going to interview her on what impact all of this is having on the mortgage market. Forbearances, if you can't afford to make your mortgage payment, what are the different options there, what's happening with reverse mortgages, everything to do with lending. So if that's of interest, that's this coming Thursday, 10 a.m. So what we're going to do moving forward is every Thursday until we get past all of this, we're going to have something at 10 a.m. on Thursdays. This past Tuesday, our Senior Move Manager, John Pettingill, started off a decluttering workshop series, a 4-part series. The second part is this coming Tuesday, April the 21st, and it's basically so we can make use of the time that we have in our home to do decluttering. So John has put together a program that you can jump in at any time, doesn't matter which week you jump in at, but it's kind of a 4-part series. You can start at week 3, week 4, and then just start again back at week 1. He kind of summarizes what they went over the last week, but it's helped you with some techniques, how to not get stuck when it comes to decluttering, where to start, some different tools and techniques for doing so. And then the idea is at the end of each call, you decide what you want to get achieved in the next week. And then if you wish, you can share that the following week with other people who are on the call. And it's done in a meeting format.
Should you put this up so that they can sign up for it?
Okay, that's a great idea while we talk about each one.
So basically, Brett will put up so that you can register for all of these events. Any of them that interest you, you just check those off, and we will make sure that you're registered for them.
So those who are online and can see the poll, it basically lists each of these events that was on the slide. And if you check them, we'll do our best to be able to then go and register you. And as part of that, then you'll get an email confirmation with the call-in details. So each call has different access details, a different password. So you do need it. You can't just use the same one from today and jump on the call. It will be different. For those who are on the phone, just give us a call and we'll get you registered, or go to the website. On the slide we have, it has janellegroup.com/events. So Janelle Group, June, like the month of June with 2 L's, group.com/events, and you can register there. We have all of the events there that are coming up, and we're continuing to add more. So either go there or call us and we'll happily get you registered. But the poll screen's up. The third one on the screen, healthcare decision making in the COVID-19 environment. Our attorney Richard Schultz, one of our sponsors, he will be interviewed, and we'll be asking him what we need to know in relation to trusts, powers of attorney, guardianship, with all of this going on. What do we need to know about? And then on April the 30th, again a Thursday, we have our truth about staying independent. This was the one that we postponed back in March. When the outbreak happened, we had to put it on hold. So our panelists that were going to be there in person are now going to do it in a webinar format like this. You'll see each panelist on the screen. Instead of it just being Annette and I as one, you'll see the 4 of us all up there. So that'll be fun, something new. And then on May 22nd, we have our truth about cannabis for seniors. And I'm guessing we're not going to be back at our Riggins Court location. If we are, we'll do it there. The likelihood, it seems like that's going to be closed for May. And we'll be doing it online. So the downside, I was really hoping for cannabis samples, some weed and so forth, and magic cookies or whatever it is that they have. We obviously won't be doing that, but I think it'll be very informative, the different panelists that we're going to have on that. So yeah, if you just want to register for any of those, please do, and we'll close that out in just a moment. And then, so question and answer. Want to jump to question and answer?
Yes, let's do it.
So I'll leave the poll on the screen just for a few more minutes, and let's go to question and answer. So let's just explain how this is going to work. So firstly, if you'd like to ask a question, for those who are on the phone, if you press *9, it allows you to basically notify us that you have a question, and then we will come to you in order. We'll unmute you, and you'll be able to ask your question. So you'll press *9. When we get to you in the queue, you'll hear a message on your phone saying you've been unmuted, and then you can go ahead and ask your question. If you happen to be on a mobile device or a computer, you should see on your screen, probably up towards the bottom if it's on a phone or a tablet, the ability to raise hand. And that'll also put you in a queue where we can unmute you and we can ask you your question. And then again, for those who are on devices, there's also a Q&A, question and answer, where you can actually type in your questions and we'll see it. We'll read out the question for the benefit of everybody, and then we'll be able to answer that question. So *9 or raise hand or click on Q&A. So I'm just going to close out that poll and then bring up our window for question and answers. So I see we already have a couple of questions, so let's put it on a screen where Annette and I can both see it. Let's just see if anyone's raised their hand yet so we can see that as well. We're adapting to this new technology, so bear with us one moment. So let's start with those who have typed in a question. So the first question is, if you sell with years of warranty left on the roof, is that warranty transferable? So we've put a new roof on at some point and we want to know whether or not we can transfer the warranty. So that really depends on the roof provider. So there's two parts to it. There was the person who installed the roof, and then there was the company who provided the materials, and that's a question for them. So usually there's a warranty on the materials by the manufacturer, and then I know a lot of roofers here will warranty it for a certain period of time. So you would need to go back to them and ask, what is that period? But usually the warranty, when it's a 50-year roof, that's going to be on the roof itself. It's usually not the underlayment. There's two components to the roof. There's the underlayment, and sometimes that deteriorates before the actual roof itself, requiring the roof still to be replaced. So great question. Go back to who installed your roof, and then they should be able to answer that. Similar goes for windows. That's another one. Usually a lot of windows have warranty. It gets transferred to the next owner, and sometimes it's one owner, sometimes it's for the life of the warranty. Can we talk about iBuyers is the next question. So let me check that one off as answered. Can you talk about iBuyers? So there's some programs available in the market that allow your home to be purchased, and they come under this umbrella term of an iBuyer. So there's a number of companies that are doing it. Basically, they will offer you a price on your home that you can either accept or not, and it basically means you can walk away from the home without having to put it on the market. So sometimes it's investors, sometimes it'll actually be real estate companies. Our company, Keller Williams Realty, has an iBuyer program. So it's great where you just don't want to have the hassle and you want to get your home sold, but basically the purpose of anyone offering the iBuyer is not to buy the home to live in, it's to buy it and then resell it. So it's investors who are behind the iBuyer programs, and their purpose is to make money. So based on that, do you think they want to pay market value or below market value? And the answer is below market value. But that makes sense to some people, where the highest price is not the most important, where you're just after convenience, you just want to be able to move. They're going to give you cash sometimes in as little as a week or 2 weeks' time, and you're done. So that can be appealing. But just know you don't have market forces working for you to get you the highest price.
That's
Jeff,
correct.
anything you wanted to add?
Yep.
So if you have follow-up questions, feel free to type them in on that. So that's iBuyer. What is your best guess for housing prices for the next 6 months?
I like your answer before. You said, how long is a ball of string?
How long is a piece of string? Yeah. You answer that, and then I can tell you, where prices will be. So I'm glad this person's anonymous. What is our best guess? I think they're going to be less in 6 months' time. I personally, and you can contradict me, I think we are definitely going into a recession. I keep up with what's going on in the market as best I can. And just across the country and the world, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, just put out today some grim news in terms of the global market, in terms of where things are going, just the big impact this has across. And there's just so many complexities in terms of how money moves across the globe, how businesses interact across the globe, how it's going to impact US businesses. We have imports, exports between many different countries, how that's all impacted. Lots of businesses who currently They're talking about, the Nordstroms, the Sears, the Forever 21s, lots of large companies being closed this long who are already in trouble. Are they going to survive this? And we know many won't. That means, there's no jobs there. There's malls who are going to have, less occupancy. So there's just a big ripple effect. And then at the end of the day, that affects the ability for buyers to be able to buy.
Well, and also, what we're looking at 6 months from now, you're looking in the fall period where we typically see a bit of a slowdown anyway. Right now is when we see typically the prices start rising, and we're not seeing that right now. So it is hitting our market right now as far as those prices. So 6 months from now, I would expect that the prices to be lower than what they are right now, or, gosh, I keep losing that thing, or at least staying steady, not necessarily, I don't see them going up at all.
Yeah, definitely going up. There'll definitely be a softening in the market. It's just how much is the question. Is it 5%? Is it 10%?
And actually, it's interesting because at the beginning of this year, I was reading a lot of articles that people believed, the experts believed that we'd see a 5% increase in our prices of homes this year. So we're definitely not going to see that because obviously that was before COVID-19. But yeah, I expect in 6 months there will be more, and quite frankly, we're going to see more homes coming on the market once we're able to get out of isolation, because if you do have a tenant-occupied property, that's the time to be putting it on the market. We have several people right now that are looking to put their home on the market but want to wait until the time period comes where we can not be in isolation. So we should see more homes coming on the market, which automatically puts pressure on prices when that happens. This next question, regarding disclosures due to medical issues and a family member was on hospice, is it necessary to disclose that they passed away in your home? The answer is no, but if the agent asks, if the buyer's agent specifically asks or the buyer asks, then you must disclose. But it is not necessary for you to disclose that up front.
So I don't see any hands up. I'm wondering if someone could do me a favor just to know whether this is working. And I won't call on you, but if someone, or it doesn't matter how many, I can lower your hands, but could just do the raise hand function or the *9.
Oh, yep, we're seeing
Okay,
that.
so thank you. It's working. So thank you. We just wanted to make sure. So, and I see you all unraising your hand, so I won't call on you. And there's one hand still up. I'm going to lower all hands. Oh, thank you. You've already gotten rid of it. So we don't have any more questions at the moment. If anyone does want to raise their hand, *9 or clicking on the raise hand, or has another question they would like to type in. We also have chat. Some people might have realized there's a chat function. We haven't talked about it or used it. It's where you can also interact, but because we're trying to concentrate on talking, we haven't really looked at chat. I can see our fantastic assistant Alexa has been responding to some people, so let me just quickly scan. Yes, and those questions have been put into Q&A, so thank you for doing that.
Brad, I on here. I had a question come in via email. I don't know if she's on the call, but she wanted to know a little bit more about the quote, "We buy ugly houses quick." If that's a scam, if you can touch on that.
All right.
Okay, so thank you, Alexa. So Alexa just said someone had emailed in, Annette can't hear what's being asked, her earpiece fell out, but was asking about the "We buy ugly homes," the signs that you see. Is that a scam? Is it real? It's again in the same category of kind of like the iBuyer programs. So it's investors. It's actually a franchise company, so it's a legal, legitimate company. And those signs are basically to generate calls for that company, whereby they will offer you a price, a cash price to buy the house. So again, sometimes for convenience that makes sense. Just know you don't have the market working for you. And then the other thing I would say about that is there's some of those signs who are, it's actually, unfortunately, and I don't agree with it, but it's a real estate agent behind it, and they're hoping that you will call, and then basically it's kind of bait and switch, to be honest. They're basically saying, this is what we'd do for cash, and that doesn't make any sense. It's way below what you should get for your home. And then they're saying, well, I can list the home for you and put it on the market. So I don't think that's a great way to do business, but there are some of those. So just be careful of those, what their intention is. But yeah, it's definitely a legitimate business. We Buy Ugly Homes is a legitimate business. The iBuy programs for the right people, they can make sense if you're in usually in a What's the situation?
Well, quite frankly, if you want to just move and it causes you a lot of stress to have your home on the market and have people walking through it, it causes you stress to get it ready to go on the market, and the money isn't as important to you, that may be a really good alternative for you. So you don't actually have to put your home on the market and you get the home sold.
Yeah. Or buyers that are in distress, something's happening, a bankruptcy's coming up, or a foreclosure, or there's things where they just need to move really fast, need the cash, and that's a viable way. Let's just see if we had any other questions. I just closed the question and answer. Sorry, I was a little distracted. The UPS truck was just pulling up in front of our house.
That's what happens when you do things at home.
Yeah.
Brett has two different screens here, and he's trying to get the mouse to go between the two of them, hence it's taking a little bit to go.
So I don't see any more questions, but if you do have one-on-one questions you'd like to answered, yeah, feel free just to call us. We're still doing business, even if mainly from home.
Yep.
And thank you all for being on the call today, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you this Thursday with the interview with Debbie Wood on mortgages. So have a great day, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.